Welcome back. Now, for those of us who spend our spare time lying down staring at the ceiling, it's a bit daunting to hear of people as dynamic as the lady I'm about to introduce. She's a painter and designer. She runs a wildlife foundation. She's a horsewoman, a hang glider. She plays the guitar and speaks 6 languages. She trots around the globe, and in between all this, she manages to star in the occasional film and television series like Heart to Heart and Hollywood Wives. She's about to return to the West End stage in the new musical Matador. Ladies and gentlemen, Stefanie Powers. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. You don't mind catching a cold?
I don't really do all that stuff, you know. Not really.
No.
It sounds great, doesn't it? Wow.
You really don't mess around, do you? I mean, you got straight off the plane to rehearse for the play.
Am I here? Oh, yes, I am.
Well, sure.
Yes, I think so. Yes, well, they started rehearsing February the 11th, but I was, Robert Wagner and I were on the road doing a play called Love Letters, which we debuted in October last year.
Yes.
And we did the tour of the United States in 5 cities, and I had about 4 days to turn my life around to come here. So I joined the company, actually, in rehearsal.
What is the story of the show?
Well, without putting words in the writers of or in the concept of the people, I believe that it's based or inspired largely by the story of El Cordobés, who was a very popular. I say popular. He was a man of the people, a popular bullfighter in the era of the '60s. And he was a boy who came from obscurity into fame beyond his wildest concept.
Like Maradona.
Like Maradona, yes. And what tends to happen with those young men who come from a very poor, impoverished background is that there are very few venues for them to extricate themselves from their poverty. And in Latin countries where bullfighting is an option, they either do it through prize fighting, bullfighting, sometimes rock and roll. And when this meteoric rise occurs, they live a life for about 10 minutes, which is like a king. And very few people are capable of tolerating that kind of fame. And inevitably, it comes to a rather tragic end. This is largely the story of this boy and the way in which he chose to leave this background and rise to fame and fortune so that he could always, you know, go back home in his white Mercedes-Benz. And the role that I play, if we're going to use prototypes, is sort of an Ava Gardner character.
Yes, because she was very much into the bullfighting scene, wasn't she, for one period of her life?
Interesting way of putting it.
Yes, I've tried hard to say it. You knew her, didn't you, quite well?
I did, very well. She was I'm very proud to say she was a great friend of mine. And in actual fact, the last piece of film that Ava ever did was a pilot for a television series that I produced, and she was kind enough to act in.
You know about bullfighting, don't you, Stefanie?
I spent a great deal of time on a bull ranch owned by some very dear family friends, and it was very natural for everybody to get up in the morning, early in the morning, and ride horses up into the high country where they kept the big bulls, and ride alongside them and learn about the animals, and they're magnificent creatures.
But did you get into the ring?
Yes, I did. Mm-hmm.
You didn't kill one, did you?
No.
No, this was before you became involved with wildlife conservation.
Well, it was also a different kind of a world, you know. It was a world where we all thought everything was, you know, the bubble was never going to burst. We weren't aware that we were participants in the imminent end of the planet as we knew it. Now we know that we are, and now that we know that in hindsight we were even then, but it wasn't common knowledge. Mm. And of course we're now actively participating in it, aren't we?
Yes.
like with a lot of things, though, that people sort of, they're passed off as like fox hunting. They say, oh, it's traditional. No, it's a tradition. No, you mustn't. Like with the bullfighting, you could say, no, if you disagree...
humanely killing.
If you disagree, exactly, it's humanely killed and humanely char-grilled and barbecued outside the back after. And, you know, if you attack bullfighting, you're somehow sort of actually sort of tapping away at the whole fabric of Spain. And I think there are a lot of things that are still tolerated because they happen to be traditional.
But then it's also true of big game hunting and ivory as a bauble to wear.
Yeah.
I mean, we're now in an enlightened period where we don't really need to kill animals to wear something as barbarous as a fur coat. I mean, we're out of the cave, aren't we? We have lots of miracle fabrics to keep us nice and warm. We don't need coats made of fur.
Now, you actually run the William Holden Wildlife Foundation,
Yes.
is that what it's called?
Yeah.
In Kenya.
Our largest operation is in Kenya, but we participate in some things that are around the world. We have participated, and we continue to participate in a program that's very active at the Cincinnati Zoo. It's they have a centers for it's unique in the world. It's a frozen zoo concept. Basically, it's tissue, semen, ovum, and embryos from every species that they can collect from.
Rory, I'm sure you've got some thoughts on this.
Would you like to contribute?
I went off into a different world. So what are they doing with these?
Well, it's absolutely fascinating because in some cases when animals in captivity die, they may represent a gene pool which is irreplaceable. By conserving some tissue or semen, they're not actually dead. You know, there are many advances that are happening so much faster than we can even keep track in terms of how tissue can be cloned and actually can become reproductive.
So it sort of goes on for years and yet not dead. A bit like Jacques Cousteau, really.
Only different.
I think we should have a sort of wildlife plate where they can actually breed... they can breed naturalists in captivity, you know. You can sort of like breed the Attenborough species and cross it with the Bellamy and things like that.
In the end, it means none of us will ever actually die in that way. We achieve posterity.
There's a lot of talk about that. I mean, there was a book written once about the Prometheus Project, which was a project that was done in the United States. And the concept was, if we knew we were going to live to be 140 years of age, how would this alter our behavior? And it would certainly alter it considerably. If we knew that the sort of diseases that were accompanied the aging process could be forestalled for an indefinite period of time, how different would we conduct our lives? How precious do we conceive of the life support system if we don't think that we're going to be enjoying it for very long?
This show that I mentioned when I introduced you, Heart to Heart, very successful show, there's a rumour of it returning.
Unfortunately, no.
Only a rumour.
We would love nothing better. It was the happiest period of time. We did it for 5 years as well. And
is it true that they're now breeding them in captivity, in fact?
They are.
There's a place where Heart to Heart is being kept artificially for...
Yeah.
It was very different from Inspector Morse, which is...
It's very good, isn't it?
Yeah, oh. Well, I was just hoping we'd cut that bit out. When I just...
You will on the night, won't you?
On the night, yes. But Inspector Morse is quite a different kind of show from Heart to Heart. It hasn't got that gloss and glamour. And you did your best work together in bed, didn't you?
With about 65 people. There were about 65 people watching us in bed. It was quite interesting.
Yeah. But...
What do you say?
What I was going to say was that you and Morse have washed up together, but I presume that's as far as it goes.
That is as far as it goes, I swear.
I think that only your most devout fans will remember your very first television appearance, which was The Girl from U.N.C.L.E.
Oh, my.
This is April Dancer, General Assignment Agent of U.N.C.L.E. Out of her headquarters right here in New York City. A former service brat, they call her. Lived here, there, around the world most of her life. Fluent in a dozen different languages. Intelligent, resourceful, and as you will see, of many faces. I emphasize her remarkable ability to assume different personalities. Magnificent. Beautiful. So lovely. These film clips that we acquired from many different sources at no small cost. for the sole purpose to identify this young woman so that she would be instantly recognizable to each and every member of the syndicate from the executive committee on down the line.
Wow.
Where in the world did you get that?
Oh, we
dear.
have our
You
sources.
really dug that one out, didn't
Well,
you?
it's fun.
That was the last in the series, wasn't it? In fact, that broke
That
the
was-
costume budget. That
Yes,
one.
it was frozen.
Yeah.
They ran out of costumes and just gave the whole thing up after.
With all that action woman stuff, it didn't actually succeed all that well as a series, did it?
It was at the tail end of The Man from U.N.C.L.E.
Yeah.
It was a clone, if you like that word. It was a clone of The Man from U.N.C.L.E., and it was about that time that the producer of both shows was really sort of, I think he was ready for early retirement, and we were on for a year, but that was it.
You're a bit like that girl, of course. I mean, you speak all the languages, and you're always on the move, aren't you?
Well, the world is, you know, you have to be on the move in order to get from point A to point B, don't you? I mean,
Tried British Rail, you know?
But you're a unit. That's a good thing. I mean, you can get up and go whenever you want, I suppose.
well, more or less, yeah. I can't bring my dogs here. That would sort of makes me rather upset. But,
Remind us how many languages you speak.
well, I can get along in about 7.
You've learned the other one today. I mentioned 6. Can you say...
English is not my first language. Polish is my first language. Polish, English, Spanish, Italian, French, all the Latin languages. Swahili and some Mandarin Chinese.
Stefania Fedorkovich?
Zofia Fedorkevich.
Well, that's what I said. That's your original name.
That was my original. But my grandmother spoke 14 languages, so I don't really quite measure up.
Good Lord. How do you say good night in Swahili?
Good night. Kwaheri, akwanana, or akwakesho. It's a goodbye, I'll see you tomorrow.
Oh, thanks. Well, that's a lovely awesome
Kesho.
I look forward to that very much. And break a leg in Polish or whatever with the new
I
show.
don't. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Stefanie Powers.
Thank you.
Terry Waitley. And Rory Bremner. And thanks for your company. See you next week. Good night.